Welcome to this guided walk through the East End of London from Bow Road to Bethnal Green. We'll be walking in the footsteps of some famous old East Enders, including politicians and performers, and along the way we'll also hear stories of a murderer and a ghost story. And you can download all of the directions and a route map from our website, walkeast.org. If you happen to be watching this on a DVD, you can print it directly from the disc. There's an old milepost over the road which tells us that we're 2 miles from Whitechapel and 1.5 miles from Stratford. In 1902, the Whitechapel and Bow Railway was opened. The station still retains some of its old charm, with arched windows, wooden panelling and some of the old signage. So here we are at the George Lansbury Memorial on the corner of Bow Road and Harley Grove. George Lansbury was a very popular local politician and he was often referred to as the uncrowned king of the East End. Lansbury was a keen supporter of the suffragette movement, in other words, the right of women to vote, and he also campaigned to improve the living conditions of the working classes. Life in the East End around the time of the First World War was pretty tough. About a quarter of the local population was living in poverty. Right, we'll move on now from the Lansbury Memorial, just a short distance along the Bow Road, and then head away from the busy traffic into Cockburn Street, one of the side streets. So here we are in Cockburn Street. It's a little bit quieter here than on the main road. The first plaque is outside number 30 Cockburn Street. This was the house that Dr. Bernardo lodged at when he first arrived from Ireland in 1866. Bernardo soon realised that there were a great many poor, abandoned and distressed children living in the East End. So he decided to set up a boys' home in Stepney Causeway. Written over the door was the inscription, "No destitute child ever refused admission." Here, children would be safe and provided with food, clothing and an education. Over the years, Bernardo raised funds from wealthy patrons and opened more and more children's homes. And on this side of the road we have another blue plaque. This one's to Charles Cockburn, and as you can see from the inscription, he took his name from this street, Cockburn Street. Originally he was born Charles McCallum, down in Stepney, a couple of miles along the road. Charles Cockburn is famous for a couple of songs in particular, The Man Who Broke the Bank of Monte Carlo and Two Lovely Black Eyes.
All in a moment he handed to me two lovely black eyes.
Right, we're standing here in the middle of Tredegar Square and you get a fantastic view of all four terraces. It's very peaceful and very quiet. The terraces around the square were built between about 1820 and 1832, and they're remarkably well preserved with a lot of period detail. It's all very genteel, and so it's hard to imagine that a murderer lived just behind me at number 40. On the outside, Henry Wainwright was a respectable, hard-working family man with his own brush-making business down in Whitechapel Road. But he had a weakness for women, especially actresses. It was at the Pavilion Theatre that he met Harriet Lane, and they were together for several years. But Harriet had a drink problem and soon started to demand money from Wainwright, so he hatched a plot for her to disappear, so to speak. After murdering her, he buried her body under his warehouse floor. We're now walking up into Mile End Park, and as you go you'll spot these two bronze plaques which are very similar to the stone plaques that we saw on the entrance to Tredegar Square. These mark the King George's Fields. There are about 450 in the UK, and they're spaces that are set aside in memory of King George for the public enjoyment. Mile End Park is a bit like a green spine running through the borough, from Victoria Park in the north, and down to Limehouse in the south. And the Regent's Canal runs all the way along the western edge. It really is a great place to explore.
Well, there's a great deal to do here. For sports lovers, if we go from the north of the park, we have the outdoor gym, which is very popular, people of all ages, all genders.
We'll just go underneath the railway bridge and past Mile End climbing wall. The smart new Meath Bridge comes next, and you can reach it up steps or a slope and use it to cross over into Meath Gardens.
The bridge was built really to connect communities because previously there was no way to cross the canal here apart from going along the busy Roman road.
Once we've left Meath Gardens, we need to head down Usk Street beside the allotments. At the end there's Roman Road, where we cross over and head straight on along Bonner Street. Here in Bonner Street we pass the old Bishop Bonner pub. Edmund Bonner was Bishop of London in Tudor times under Queen Mary. He has the dubious distinction of being remembered for sentencing many hundreds of Protestants to death by burning. We now take the next left turning into Cypress Street. Cypress Street is a beautiful street of Victorian houses. They have colourful shutters with swirly S latches. Cypress Street is remarkable for one thing in particular, which is the War Memorial, which you'll see behind me. Thankfully, unlike many other parts of the East End, Cypress Street escaped the bombing during World War II. Straight ahead are Gretton House and Merceron House, built by the East End Dwellings Company, which was one of many social housing organisations that were active here around the late 19th and early 20th century. So that completes our walk from Bow Road to Bethnal Green. We're now right by the tube station, which is just behind me. In the video, we've only had a few minutes to pick out some of the things of interest, so I hope you take the time to look at it yourself. And as I mentioned earlier, you can download the map and all the details from our website. But anyway, it's now time for me to go and pop into the cafe at the museum for a coffee. So I'll see you next time.